Welcome, Pia, to the 700 Club Canada. I'm so glad to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Turns out we're neighbors.
Yes.
We even go to the same chiropractor, right? Tell us a little bit about, before you wrote this amazing book, what did you do?
I was an oncology nurse for 29 years at Princess Margaret Hospital.
Wow, you've seen a lot.
Yeah, I loved it. It was my dream job, and I would have still been doing it, but 5 years ago I was sidelined with some chronic illnesses, and so I had to medically retire.
Wow.
And so I have a new normal.
You have a new normal, and because of this illness, God led you on, opened really a new door for you in writing. I'm sure you were writing before, but it just opened up the door, right?
Yeah, it just gave me the opportunity to pursue it. Well, for quite a few years, it was just sitting there because I had really bad brain fog. But, you know, now things seem to be clearing up, and
yeah, that's so encouraging, because I bet you there's someone watching thinking, I'd love to, you know, be a writer or accomplish things, but I'm struggling with an illness. And look what you've done in a journey of illness. You wrote this book. Tell us about your family. You've got a couple kids.
Yes, they're adults now. They're two girls. Hannah's a social worker, and she's married, has 2 kids. And Leah is a lawyer in Ottawa.
Okay, so you're a grandma too?
Yeah.
I love it.
It's the greatest.
Best job, right? Well, I have to say, one of my favorite, I read a lot, and one of my favorite genres is historical fiction. And this book, Benaiah, did I say that right? I wanted to say, am I saying his name right? I tried it a few different ways, but Benaiah, it's a beautiful historical fiction. You have an ability to take a biblical character and brought him to life for me. I'm right here. I'm actually right here, so I don't know how it ends. But thank you for writing this story. Why did you pick Benaiah?
Well, like most writers, I'm also a reader, and that is a genre I really enjoy. And I just found, you know, as I did research, I just thought his story needs to be told.
Yeah.
And
there's not a lot told about him in Scripture, though.
No.
Like, what's said about Benaiah in Scripture?
Oh, well, actually, he's not as obscure as you'd think. And so, because of his many roles, I just thought it was quite fair to place him in a lot of settings with David and in Israel's history.
Because David, he was one of David's mighty men.
Yes.
Which we often think, oh, those mighty men, there was, you know, macho, warrior, you know, heroic types. That was who he was. Yeah. And what were the things that he was known for that we do know about him?
Well, the 3 heroic deeds that earned him the place as one of the mighty men, where he fought a lion in a pit on a snowy day, which is what the cover is.
I mean, think of that.
Yeah.
Fighting a lion in a pit on a snowy day, like what?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And he fought a giant Egyptian, and he fought 2 Moabite aerials, which they think might have been like 2 platoons of soldiers, which is quite amazing. And we also know his father was a priest, and so he would have been expected to be a priest.
Right.
Right,
but he didn't follow the way of his father.
No, and that's a curious.
I love how we get to meet his wife, we get to hear a story, and I'm assuming, because we don't know necessarily, although your historical research may have led you to some of these details.
Yes, he did have 2 sons that we know of.
Yeah.
One was a soldier in his division.
Right.
And the other became chief counselor to David after the death of Ahithophel.
Okay.
Yes, so he was one of David's mighty men. He was also his chief bodyguard, which is why I placed him on the roof that night with David when he sees Bathsheba, because he must have been another mighty man, because he knew that it was the wife of a mighty man.
Right.
And
he was so close to David and all that went on, right?
Yeah.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And what was the main premise that we're learning? I mean, I'm in the story, and I'm learning, I'm seeing the lesson. What do you think is the most important lesson from Benaiah's life?
Well, because my premise is what happens when the king's most obedient soldier is issued a wicked command. Right? And so we wanted to take a look at, like, what made him want to obey.
Yeah.
And so I kind of took it back to when he was a child and something happened and he disobeyed and it was tragic consequences. So this way he was just determined to do whatever, because I thought, why would he obey such an order to go get that his friend's wife for the king? And so then the whole premise becomes, you're trying to figure out, his life versus, to obey is better than sacrifice.
Right.
And so how much does grace play, or is it all just about obedience?
Yeah.
And, we just want God to accept us. I think people are still the same, even though 3,000 years separate us.
That's a good point. And we can't relate to the warrior he was, but we can relate to the man that he was, and the same struggles that he had. And walking so closely with David, I feel like you've brought the Bible to life in so many ways. I see as I'm reading, I'm just immersed into this scene with David and the struggles and the beautiful things that happen. And yet, as you said, this obedience is better than sacrifice. And what he learned along the way, I'm being challenged as I read this story, thinking, how would I respond?
Right.
What was a lesson for you? What do you think? How has this story impacted you?
Well, I think it's seeing the balance between law and grace. And, obedience is definitely important, and God expects us to obey him, but we fail.
Yeah.
And for that, there's grace, and that's amazing grace.
Amazing grace. That's so true. And you know what? I think, in writers, Francine Rivers comes to mind. And I've read probably all of Francine Rivers' books, historical genres, because I love the scripture, but I need it to come to life for me. Like, are these real people? You do that.
Oh, thank you.
And you need to meet Francine Rivers. I'm sure she's one of your heroes. I commend you as a Canadian author. I just encourage you to keep writing and keep telling this story, because is this just for, people, those of us who love the Bible, who would you say this kind of book would be good to share with?
Well, actually, I've had quite a few non-Christians read it, and I think they're surprised that, first of all, that many of these stories are in the Bible.
Right.
It's a little shocking to some people because God doesn't sugarcoat anything. He shows people as they really are. Yeah. And they've enjoyed it, and also teens. It's a demographic I didn't expect would enjoy the book, but they have been.
Well, that's a wonderful gift, because we may have people, Christmas is, here, and as you can see, we're, in that season. And I just think it's a wonderful gift for people that maybe wouldn't open the Bible, but they would experience a story from the Bible and character from the Bible in a really fresh way. So thank you for doing this. I'm loving it, and I'm going to get a few copies for my friends too. Great. Where can they find your book?
Well, it's available in Christian bookstores. Okay. It's on Amazon and Indigo and Christian Book. Yeah. It's available from my publisher, Word Alive Press.
Right.
And it's also, for signed copies are available on my website, phthompson.com.
phthompson.com. Well, you heard it here. This is a wonderful Christmas present. It brings the Bible to life. Thank you, Pia. And now, a chance encounter sets the stage for a miracle healing for one young man.